Tom Mulcair, CTV's political commentator, and Tom is the former leader of the NDP. Good morning, Tom. Nice to see you.
Good to be with you, Marcia.
So Poilievre saying he's not going to read that report. A bit confounding to some. What do you make of it?
I would never have accepted to read it either. Never. I don't want to be hamstrung as the leader of a party. I don't want to be told that now that I've seen this, I can't say that. I agree completely with the call by Pierre Poilievre.
Wow, timestamp this moment, Tom Mulcair. Really? Okay.
This one time. I agree with him completely. And it's a very delicate operation because, as you saw this week, Elizabeth May, even though she doesn't lead a party recognized in Parliament, she has that status within her own group. And she decided to avail herself of that openness. And she looked at the documents and then proceeded to talk about what she had seen. And then she decided that she could pronounce upon what she had seen and that there would be one person who had left Parliament, that maybe that person should be gone after. But the other, there's no list of names. So she gave a lot of details about what was otherwise supposed to be, as she called them, top secret documents, because she spoke several times about her top secret clearance. So she even voted against sending this over to Madam Justice Hogue, who is hearing the inquiry into foreign interference writ large. So the whole bit about interference in our elections. Parliament wisely, in my view, decided to hand this over to a judge because Elizabeth May, of course, has no experience or expertise to weigh this, and nobody else has been allowed to give their opinion on it. And that was the whole problem with releasing the names. If you release the names, people hadn't been given due process, and it was unfair. But Elizabeth May is doing the exact same thing from the other end of the bell curve. She's saying, well, I've looked at it, and as far as I'm concerned, none of these other people should be bothered. Well, I think that the wise thing to do is exactly as Parliament, all 338, minus the two Green Party members, Elizabeth May and her colleague, they all said, no, we want to give this to a judge, and that judge has a mandate, and there's a law that governs this. And by the way, it's worth mentioning, Marcia, under the law that governs commissions of inquiry, there's a specific rule that says if you're going to name somebody, you've got to give them the opportunity to be heard. You've got to be fair. You've got to give them what we call due process. So I think that overall it's a much safer move and smarter move to send it over to Madam Justice Hogue. Even though I'm sure Elizabeth May is satisfied with her own judgment on this, I think that other people who know about these things would say, no, we've got to go through the full process.
Elizabeth May said there were no names. So the report that seemed so serious seemed a lot less serious after she spoke to the media about it.
With respect, she doesn't say there were no names. She said there was no list of names, and there's a nuance there. Because she did say that there were other people mentioned, but they weren't mentioned in a list of people who would have done what was alleged, which is, connive with foreign governments to give them secrets about Canada. So that nuance is important, because Elizabeth May said there's only one and that person's no longer in Parliament. But she does say that there were other names. And so that's I think, very, very important. And that's why somebody with deep experience as a judge in weighing evidence and deciding what's admissible, what's not, and in giving people a fair chance if indeed it does go down that route. So I think that Elizabeth May jumped to her own conclusion based on her view of things. But I don't think that carries enough weight in a society that's based on the rule of law and the duty to be fair. I think that it's no more fair to conclude that there's nothing else to see here move along than it would have been fair to say, here are some of the people named in this report, and therefore we can all point fingers at them. You've got to do this right.
Okay, I just want to wrap up then with a final point then for those who are having trouble understanding why not reading the report is actually a good thing, because information is power. How do you comment on something if you haven't done the homework? So you agree with Poilievre not to read it. I still don't really get that. Does that mean you just sort of wash your hands of it, leave it out
No, not
to
at
the
all.
inquiry?
You can have a member of your party who has access to that information. And one of the things that you have to do when you do look at that information is to say that you're not going to reveal any of it. That's why it was a bit troubling. Elizabeth May said she had the opinion of a lawyer. I'd love to see that opinion, frankly, but be that as it may, I think that Poilievre was wise not to tie his own hands. He is the leader of the official opposition. I have once occupied that role for several years as leader of the opposition. I would never want to be hamstrung because I looked at a government document I would never want to be told that I can't ask all the questions I want of the government. And I think that on this, Poilievre is completely right. The others don't have as important a role. Neither the leader of the NDP, my former party, and I respect its current leader a great deal, Jagmeet Singh, nor the Bloc Québécois, Yves-François Blanchet, also doing his job. I don't think that either of them is in the same position as the leader of the official opposition, who has a very formal role in our parliament. And I think the last thing that you would want to do in that role, forget about the individuals, anybody in that role who would decide to intentionally limit the purview of their interventions and their ability to talk about an issue by looking at a document and then saying they wouldn't talk about it, I think that would be a mistake. You can write down the date. It's the 13th of June,
Thursday,
2024.
June 13th.
And I agree with Pierre Poilievre on something.
Wow. Okay, Tom Mulcair for us this morning. Tom, thank you so much, Tom.
All the best.